Hello everyone. The following video will accompany my shell script, which aims to automate network penetration testing by scanning a specific network range for vulnerabilities and weak credentials. The script performs different levels of scanning, a basic one and a full one, and includes options for various NSE scripts to identify vulnerabilities in services such as SSH, FTP, Telnet, and RDP. The results are saved in organized directories for easy review. For the purpose of this demonstration, I have set up a simple domain environment that includes three machines. One is the server manager. As you can see, it has its address here. Then we have a simple Windows 10 machine, and we also have a Metasploit 2 machine, all sitting on the same network. Let's go back to our Kali machine and try to run the script. As you can see, the script demands you run it as root. Let's run the script with root privileges. After that, you will see I am checking for updates. The reason for that is that there are vulnerabilities that are discovered daily, and I want to make sure that I'm scanning for everything that is known for us right now. The next part is to enter our network to scan. As you can see, I got an error when I entered the wrong network. So let's proceed and enter our correct network this time. I will now proceed to specify the correct network range, after which I will need to specify the name of my output folder. I will name my output folder basic scan since the scan type I would like to run is basic. You will see here that when I specify that the scan type is basic, it's enough to type B and it will recognize the correct scan type and give me a short summary. Next, I am asked if I want to supply my own username or password list. I will choose no, as the script itself comes built in with a couple dozen of the most common username and passwords used across different services. After I choose no for both of these, I will proceed to run the basic scan itself. The basic Nmap scan uses version intensity 0 and increased verbosity to perform a quick and efficient scan for the most likely ports to be open both in UDP and TCP. This saves a lot of time, and as this is just a basic scan, that information is enough for me right now. If I'd like more information, I can always run a full scan or analyze the results I get and target specific systems through that. While the scan is running, let's go inside our folder and see the files already contained inside. First, you can see the scan log here. Everything Nmap performs goes inside there in a greppable format for every other use you may have. Here we can see the list of built-in passwords which we have inside our code, same with the usernames that are used. Here we can see again our input that we put in for our network and scan type. We have our Nmap scan, and we can see the log, we can see the actions already performed, and we can see if we press a button on the code right here, we can see the update of how long we have remaining. As you can see, the time is fairly quick since we put in those arguments that I mentioned before. Okay, next let's skip ahead to the end of the scan. It's about 3 hours later, and as we can see, the scan is fully complete, except for one part. I had to interrupt the telnet scan. I will explain that part later. As you can see, we checked for SSH passwords, we checked for FTP passwords, we checked for telnet, again, that will be explained later, and RDP. All the results are saved inside our zip. As you can see, basicscan.zip as we requested, task complete, and the results can be found in our log. Let's go over the files next. Here inside our directory, you can see we have everything organized according to the weak passwords and according to the different scans we requested. If we open our log, we can see the full process the Nmap scan took, including every result it found, all the open TCP and UDP ports, including the service names. I've purposely set up a diverse test environment because I wanted to see the full capabilities of the code and wanted to familiarize myself with how different systems look. That's why I've set up a domain, a Windows 10 user, and a Metasploit system. I wanted to see what the scan is capable of and to get to know what kind of output I will be getting from different operating systems. Next, let's go over our weak password results, starting from RDP. Let's go inside the hydrolog and see what we found. As we can see, all of our live hosts were scanned, and indeed, on one of the hosts, we have a positive result. We can see here, there's one password found. Login and password are service. That's great. That's an excellent result, which was also exported into its own file. written with weak password and a domain name. Inside we can see the argument used to recover the password, and we can see the found credentials. Next, let's move on to the RDP service. Inside our RDP log, we can see we got some very interesting results. We haven't actually found any valid credentials, but we have found hints about some of our credentials that might be right. In this case, I would suggest to investigate these lines further, see where these hints lead, and perhaps you can extrapolate some useful information following these clues. Next, let's move on to our SSH service. Inside our SSH log, we can see that most live hosts have refused our connection, but we do have one interesting result. That address, by the way, is the Metasploit address. Of course, that's an exploitable system, so it's good for demonstrations. In this case, something with our Hydra didn't work. Remember this for later because our full scan does offer a solution for it. Besides that, we can see our connections are refused. Not much you can do about that. Next, let's move on to the Telnet service. As I mentioned before, I had to interrupt the service, and now you can see inside the log why I had to do that. Apparently, our live host was throttling our brute force attempts, and I had to stop the system because it wasn't yielding any results and it was taking too long for the scan. When I see a result like this, I can always try to specifically target that system with that service on a different code and not this part of the script. Moving on, you can see the results of our Nmap scan. If we scroll all the way down, we can see all our hosts that are inactive, and then we get to the meat and potatoes. We get to our useful information, all the different hosts with all their different open ports. That's a short summary. It's easier to read than the log itself. Okay, next, let's move on to the full scan. We will run the code again as root. We will not check for updates as the system was updated not long ago. And again, we will enter our address. It's the same network range I used before because I wanted to test the different results between the basic and full scan. We will name our directory as full scan, select F or full to run a full vulnerability scan. After that, we can also agree to enumerate net bias names and to run enumeration for SMB users and shares. I will not run SQL info since I'm confident there's no SQL services running there, and I do not want to take up my resources right now. But that's also an option included in the code. Next, I will specify my own username and password list. This time, for the sake of the demonstration, they include actual username and passwords available on the machines I am scanning, just because I wanted to display the results in case of an actual positive. We will now run the scan and see how it goes. Okay, and now we're back with our results. We can see we ran a full suite of scans, and now we will go over everything. Our full scan network scan is complete with vulnerabilities included, and we can see that inside our scan log, inside our full scan directory. And next we ran nbstat, also results logged inside of nbstats. Next, our SMB suite also completed and logged its results inside its results file. And from there, we moved on to our weak password scan. First of all, we used Hydra to scan for SSH, and we got some results. We also used Medusa to scan for SSH. If you remember last time when we scanned for SSH only using Hydra, we got an invalid result, which required further investigation. Let's see if our full scan results can yield us something else. Now, we go inside our full scan folder. As we can see, again, we have our input, built-in passwords, users, this time including the list I specified. We have our live hosts, and we have our scan log. If we scroll down to the scan log, here I'll open it on full screen, we can see we have a whole host of vulnerabilities discovered on the network. That's why the network scan took about 6 hours. Since the environment includes a Metasploit machine, there's plenty of vulnerabilities to find, and of course it found pretty much all of them. I think it's a great resource to learn, to study about. You can see how different things act, you can see how much work was done in the field. It's really amazing, and after I saw the results, first time I saw the results, I was quite shocked actually. I think it really demonstrates how everyone is vulnerable and everyone has something that they might have missed, and how important it is to stay up to date with the industry and to stay up to date on your system updates. Next, let's move on to our other results. Here we can see the results of our scan. As you can see, some of the information is repeating, but some of it is new. We can find a lot of useful things if we really dive into these results. Next, let's move on to the NBStat results. Let's see if we could find any net bias names. And indeed, we can see we found some interesting results. You can dive into each one of these files and you'll recover a lot. Okay, let's check out the passwords. We remember that we had a problem with the SSH passwords last time. Let's see what the results we got this time. If you remember, 130 gave us some kind of a weird result. Here we can see it again. We had an error, we could not connect and could not scan. Let's see if Medusa helped us solve this problem in any way. Here inside the Medusa log, we can see we also attacked the same system, but indeed, in this case, it did find something. You can see we found the username and password valid for this account. From here, let's move on to the telnet service. You remember last time I had to interrupt the process because we were not getting anywhere and the host was only throttling us. Let's see what we got this time. I remind you that I used another username and password file that included passwords that I know that work, and this time indeed we had a full complete run. I didn't need to interrupt the service and we did find a positive result. As you can see, Medusa also went over everything, also tried to recover information, and as we can see, it also had its own results found. And with that, this demonstration is concluded. I hope this was helpful for you, and I would love to hear some more tips. GitHub link in the description.